you've never actually heard silence. Not real silence. Even right now, in the quietest room you could find, your brain would still be making noise. Because true, total silence breaks people. There's a room on Earth so quiet, it holds a world record. And no one has ever been able to sit inside it, alone, in the dark, for more than 45 minutes. But you don't need a special room to feel it. You've felt it already. That moment when a conversation stops and no one says anything, and it feels like the air gets heavier. The second the music cuts off in your car, and suddenly you can hear yourself breathing, or lying in bed at 2 a.m. And the silence is so complete. You start hearing a ringing that isn't really there. That's not nothing. That's your brain doing something. Here's the thing. True silence doesn't really exist. Not in nature. Not anywhere you've ever been. There's always something. Wind. Traffic. Your own heartbeat. So scientists built a room to remove all of it. It's called an anechoic chamber. Walls, ceiling, and floor, covered in foam wedges that absorb almost every sound wave that hits them. No echo, no reflection, nothing. It holds the Guinness World Record for the quietest place on Earth. And here's the part that should unsettle you. No one has ever lasted inside it, alone, in the dark, for more than 45 minutes. Not because it's boring, because of what starts happening to your mind when there's truly nothing left to listen to. Here's what happens. The second external sound disappears, your brain doesn't relax. It panics, quietly. It starts turning up the volume on everything that's left. Your heartbeat gets louder. Your breathing sounds enormous. Blood moving through your own ears becomes audible. People who've sat in the chamber report, hearing their own joints creak. Some say they could hear their eyelids blink. Your brain is built to expect a baseline hum of sound at all times. It's how it's wired to know it's safe. So when that hum disappears completely, your nervous system treats it like something is wrong. Not because the silence is dangerous. Because the absence of information is what your brain can't stand. In 2014, researchers ran an experiment that sounds almost too strange to be real. They put people alone in a room. No phone, no book, nothing to do except sit with their own thoughts for 15 minutes. Before the experiment, every single participant had tried a mild electric shock and said they'd pay money to avoid feeling it again. But when they were left alone in silence, a huge number of them chose to shock themselves, repeatedly, just to have something, anything, to feel other than their own thoughts. One man shocked himself 190 times in 15 minutes, not because he enjoyed pain, because sitting with nothing was worse. So why would your brain rather feel pain than sit in silence? Go back further than psychology. Go back to survival. For most of human history, silence in nature wasn't peaceful. It was a warning sign. When a forest suddenly goes quiet, no birds, no insects, no rustling, it usually means one thing: a predator is near. Animals go still. They stop making noise, and so does everything else, out of instinct. Your brain still carries that ancient wiring. Total silence doesn't register as calm. It registers as something is about to happen. You're not broken for feeling uneasy in silence. You're running code that kept your ancestors alive. But there's a second reason silence feels unbearable, and it has nothing to do with predators. It's what silence forces you to hear. When there's no music, no conversation, no scrolling to distract you, your own thoughts get louder. The ones you've been avoiding. The argument you replayed. The decision you haven't made. The thing you said and wish you hadn't. Silence doesn't create those thoughts. It just stops giving you an excuse to ignore them. This is actually why solitary confinement is considered one of the harshest psychological punishments we have. Take away all stimulation, and a person is left alone with their own mind, for hours, for days. Some describe it as more painful than physical punishment. Silence isn't empty. It's a mirror, and most of us aren't used to looking into it for very long. Here's where the story flips. Because as uncomfortable as silence is, researchers found something that changes everything we just talked about. In a study on mice, scientists compared the effects of different sounds, white noise, pub calls, ambient noise, against total silence. The results surprised even the researchers. 2 hours of silence a day led to the growth of new cells in the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning. Not music, not sound therapy. Silence. The very thing your brain treats as a threat is also one of the only things that helps it grow. Your brain isn't just tolerating silence when it's forced to. Give it space, and it starts building something. That hippocampus growth isn't random. It connects directly to something you've probably felt, but never noticed. Your brain doesn't actually store memories in the moment they happen. It stores them afterward, in the quiet gaps between experiences. Every time you pause, every time there's a lull with nothing demanding your attention, Your brain is quietly replaying what just happened, strengthening it, deciding what's worth keeping and what gets discarded. This is why studying right before falling asleep works better than studying with the TV on. It's why a walk with no music sometimes helps you finally get something you were confused about hours earlier. Silence isn't just where memories get stored, it's when they get built. There's a reason your best ideas almost never show up when you're trying to have them. They show up in the shower, on a walk, staring out a train window, somewhere quiet, unstimulated, and slightly boring. Neuroscientists call this the default mode network, a system in your brain that switches on specifically when you're not focused on anything in particular. It's the part of your brain responsible for connecting ideas that don't seem related, for reflecting on yourself, for imagining the future, and it can only fully activate when the noise stops. Every notification, every song, every scrolling thumb keeps that network switched off, which means every moment of silence you avoid might be the exact moment your best idea was waiting to happen. Long before neuroscience had a name for any of this, people already knew silence held power. They just used it in very different ways. Monks have taken vows of silence for centuries, not as punishment, but as a discipline, a way to quiet the mind on purpose, to hear something underneath the noise of everyday thought. Meditation retreats today do the same thing. Some last 10 days. No talking, no phones, no books, just silence, hour after hour, and people pay money and travel long distances specifically to sit in it. And yet, that same tool, silence, has also been used as a weapon. The same emptiness monks pursued for clarity has been used in prisons to break people down. Same silence. Two completely opposite outcomes. The difference isn't the silence itself, it's whether you chose it. Which raises an obvious question. If silence is this valuable, why does almost no one get any? Think about your actual day. Music on the commute. A podcast while you cook. The TV on in the background while you scroll something else on your phone. Even relaxing often means auto-playing something. Most people go from the moment they wake up to the moment they fall asleep without a single stretch of true, unfilled quiet. It's not an accident. Every app on your phone is designed to fill any gap in your attention as fast as possible, because a quiet moment is a moment you might close the app. Silence has quietly become one of the rarest resources in modern life, not because it disappeared, because we filled every place it used to live. So what actually happens when your brain never gets that quiet time it needs? Remember the hippocampus? The part that grew new cells with silence? Without it, that growth slows. Memory consolidation, the thing that happens in the quiet gaps, has fewer gaps to happen in. Remember the default mode network, the system responsible for your best ideas and self-reflection? It barely gets a chance to switch on if every spare second is filled with input. If every spare second is filled with input and the thoughts you've been avoiding. The ones silence forces you to face. They don't go away just because you never sit still long enough to hear them. They just wait and accumulate. This is why so many people feel constantly busy, but never actually clear. Why rest doesn't always feel restful. You can sleep 8 hours and still feel foggy, because your brain never got the one thing it actually needed to reset. Not more hours. Fewer inputs. Here's the good news. None of this requires some drastic lifestyle change or a 10-day silent retreat. Your tolerance for silence works a lot like a muscle. Right now, if you've spent years filling every gap with sound, sitting in quiet probably feels uncomfortable, maybe even unbearable. The same way going for a run feels unbearable if you haven't moved in months. But that discomfort fades. Fast, actually. Start small. Not an hour. Not even 15 minutes. Just the length of one commute without music, or one walk without a podcast. One meal without your phone propped up in front of you. The first few minutes might feel restless, even irritating. That's normal. That's your brain, used to constant input, looking for something to fill the gap. Stay in it a little longer than feels comfortable. That's the whole exercise. Because the same way your body adapts to exercise, your brain adapts to silence. It gets easier. Then, eventually, it gets good. Once silence stops feeling like a threat, something shifts. The same quiet that used to feel unbearable becomes the place where your best thinking happens. Not despite the discomfort, because you move through it. Memories consolidate more fully. Ideas connect in ways they couldn't when your attention was constantly split. The thoughts you used to avoid finally get processed instead of piling up. And most people find they're not as unbearable as they feared. Usually, they just needed to be heard once, not silenced forever. You start noticing things you'd been tuning out. How you actually feel. What you actually want. What's been quietly bothering you for weeks. None of this requires meditation, retreats, or apps, or anything you have to buy. It requires exactly what you've been avoiding. A little bit of nothing, on purpose. Remember that room, the quietest place on earth, the one no one can sit in for more than 45 minutes? Most people assume it's unbearable because silence is empty. It's actually the opposite. It's unbearable because silence is full of everything you've been drowning out. Your own heartbeat, your own thoughts. The parts of yourself you don't usually get to hear. You don't need an anechoic chamber to find that out. You just need to stop filling every gap, every single time, without noticing you're doing it. So the next time it goes quiet, in your car, in a room, right before you fall asleep, try not reaching for something to fill it. See what's actually there. You might not like everything you hear, but you'll finally be listening.